be pushed out and for everybody to see it. But we are live on a Friday recording an episode of Press the Damn Button, and I have my amazing guest already on screen, and this will be a fun one. We've had a really fun variety of topics and conversations, which is part of the reason, as a CEO of Team No Niche, this is like the beauty of this show is that I don't have to skew to anyone else's niche. I get to bring in everyone from all different walks of life and background. So we are going to do this thing right now. Let me throw up a graphic, and then we're going to kick right into the show. Let's do that. Whoop. All right. Welcome back to another episode of Press the Damn Button. And guys, I have a good one for you. My buddy Dave, how I refer to him as Dave, Iographer Dave. I actually didn't know he had a last name for a long while. Even in my contacts, it says Iographer Dave as our guest today. And we have an interesting connection and history together as became brand ambassador, a fan, a friend, and over these years in the live streaming world, it's been one hell of an evolution. But more so than that, Dave's background and also way he's built the business to me is inspiring. Also has done things where other people have come and gone, and Dave has done such a great job on that. So I'm excited to have him on. But before we jump into me asking him questions, shout out to our sponsor, Restream. Restream is powering this podcast, this live stream right now, and they have a special offer, an exclusive offer, only available till October 31st, Halloween. It does 50% off. They've only done it 4 other times in the history of their company. 50% off if you use the code iSocialFans, and the 50% off is for the lifetime of your subscription, not just for the next 12 months or whatever. So as long as you keep the subscription, you keep the 50% off a month rate. Therefore, if you want to use the studio setup that I'm using, streaming to 30 plus platforms, you can use the overlays and backgrounds. I believe it's $24 a month or $24.50 a month instead of $50 a month, which is what I was been paying for that side. So they definitely hooked me up, take care of you guys. So take care of the sponsor. And of course, the link and everything will be in the show notes. And with that, I'm going to bring in Dave. Dave, how are you doing?
I am so thrilled to be here with the handsomest man on the internet. So thank you for bringing me in today.
Oh, thank you for coming. I was excited when I first, built out this show, and I was kind of building out my roster of people that I wanted to ask. You were on my initial list of people I wanted to ask, and part of that was not only because of the history that you and I have together, but also I wanted to learn more about your story. I wanted to kind of connect your story out there with the world. And you have your background. For those that kind of, we'll set the stage where we're at now, just real quick. For those that are watching live, you can see over my shoulder, I have one of Dave's products over my shoulder right now, the Iographer case, which was the first product that I ever received from Dave, which is the case that I use. If you've seen pictures of me live streaming over the years, holding a case with a microphone on it and a light, that was what Dave created at the beginning. And then the green screen, that is my background that everyone's been talking about, is also part of Dave's brand. But probably the thing you've seen the most, funny enough, has been my hat, because this hat gets more compliments and more people making comments about it, because it kind of like embodies, like, it's like video, it's like live, it's bright orange with a black background. I've worn it on stages many times, and this is the logo for Iographer. But before we talk about Iographer and that brand, Dave, I wanted to talk a little bit about Hollywood. You were an extra. You became a director, but I want to hear. So you went to school with the idea of getting into Hollywood and production. Like, was that take me from like where it went from, like, what did Dave want to be through school, and then where that initial kind of launch was?
Well, it's funny that you asked. No, not remotely. I loved movies my whole life. My dad took me to see Gone with the Wind, like when I was a little tyke in an old movie theater. I just started loving movies. There was always these great romantic tales, and I wanted to be a part of that life. And so I would do all those things. But when I went to school, I wanted to make money. So I played football at San Diego State University. I went there on a football scholarship and studied business finance and classical history, which really I just love history, and I don't think I'll ever make money doing classical history things. But so that was my thing. And my end goal was that I wanted to go to Wall Street. I wanted to be a trader. I wanted to work on the floor of the exchange. And right out of college, I got recruited by Dean Witter Reynolds, which was one of the old Wall Street firms. And I went to New York and worked on the 63rd floor of the World Trade Towers. And so I worked there for about a year. And this is in 88. Gosh, a long time, a million years ago. And I loved it. And then I came back to LA to work on I was going to come back to LA to work on, or San Francisco, to work at the exchange in San Francisco, the options exchange. But while I was in New York, I happened to be out with some girls one night, as you will when you're young. And I met a casting director who knew these girls. One of the girls was a model or something. And so she was talking with them, and then she introduced me. And I'm 6'3". At that time, I was probably 225, but still had some muscles on me, and had this like Guido-ish look about me. And so she goes, "I love your look. Would you like to be an extra in Rocky V?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I have no idea what you're talking about, but absolutely, that sounds fun." So I took 2 days off from work, much to the chagrin of my boss, and went and was an extra in Rocky V. And that was a very life-changing, weird moment for me, because I sat on the set talking with Sylvester, who saw that I was so big, and who was I, and at that time, and wanted to know my story. And he says, you got to be true to yourself. You got to be true to yourself and what you want to do. And I'm like, gosh, you're right. I want to be an actor now. That's what I want to do. So much to the chagrin of my parents, who thought I was absolutely bonkers, I moved back to LA. And I got into being an extra in the film business. And so I was getting hired constantly. And, I went from, $75,000 a year job back in, the late 80s to $40, $50 a day being an extra on a movie thing for, 15 hours of standing around. But, oh my God, I was in the show called The Heat of the Night. And I was just working with all these big actors that I had seen growing up. And I just fell in love with it. And I was just getting by because I was like the big guy that was the bodyguard or the cop or the mafioso or whatever. And so that just kept going and going. And then one day I got cast in a movie called Out for Justice with Steven Seagal when he was like an amazing actor in Hollywood. I think it was like his third movie. And I was one of the mafia guys. And I get to go to Brooklyn, and we're filming this movie. And I got my SAG card on it. And incidentally, the way I got my SAG card was I did a stunt in the movie. I was on the top of 3 flights of stairs, and one of the bad guys shoots me, and I come rolling down the stairs, like falling down the stairs. And I was still pretty active and in shape, and so I didn't care. I put pads all over me, and I'm getting blown up. And I'm like, this is great. And so the stunt guys were like, you should really look and think about getting into stunts. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, are you crazy later? I thought, I'm not going to go falling downstairs all the time anyway. So that kind of segued my way into getting an agent. And I started getting movies and TV shows, Mad About You, News Radio, just tons of different TV shows. And then movies. My biggest one was American History X with Edward Norton
Jr. Yes.
And I had a great scene with him. And so that was a lot of fun. And so I just did all that for a long time, worked with some of the biggest actors in town. It was in Angelina Jolie's first movie. And it's just hilarious when I think about all these things. And then from there,
let me jump in real quick, because I think one of the big things there was, although you Stephen, Sylvester Stallone, and the different names, the thing that stood out to me was hanging out with a model, right? Like, hold on a second. Like, you were, so like for all those that are parents and your kids are like, hey, I want to go hang out with a model, hanging out with a model, and being the ex-football player or the, recently football player. One of the themes of this show. So this will be episode, I believe, 11, if not 12. One of the themes has been everyone that I've interviewed, there was an element of luck involved in their success, right? And such a an important element of luck, and luck in many different areas. But I was laughing because, like, right out the gate, you were like, I was at Wall Street, which is like, hey, that's impressive to begin with, and like that, running that life, and then running into a casting director that wasn't full of crap, that wasn't just trying to get with the girls you were getting, actually could back up what he was saying, and then the fact that you went all into that, right? Like, and you were California before, right? Because you went to university. So you went to New York and then went back to California. So you kind of been traveling both coasts. I'm curious, when that whole like you said, like the financial side being drastically different, and being a set on the extra, like, did you still envision one day going back to the finance world and going back to the Wall Street world, or were you like kind of like, hey, I'm checked out, like I want to see what this, like, because like, I know like telling your parents like I want to be an actor, but like in like deep down, was that like, hey, I'm gonna do this acting while it works, and then I still gonna go back there, or how did that mentality work at that time?
No, so I've always been a person of passion and wanting to follow my passions, and that's not always been a good thing. So,
I can attest to that to me with me as well.
but with this, I mean, so I saw acting. I was having fun. I was never going to go to be like Marlon Brando or somebody. I never wanted to be an Academy Award winning actor. I was just having a blast working with people that I had always seen on television or movies, and just the whole thing about the production world and what the director did and the producer did and all of it. I was really interested in all of it. So yeah, I wanted to keep that going. But at one point, so I've been years into the business, and I was like, you know what? One year, so I did this show. It was called Bakersfield PD. It was my first pilot. And to get a pilot is a big thing because that could turn into 10 years of a sitcom or whatever it is. And so
Right.
this was a sitcom on Fox that was with Giancarlo Esposito, who is a great actor, and he is a guy from the city who comes out to Bakersfield, California, and is now in this like kind of hicky, not that they're all hicky there, but it was kind of a hicky police station, and I was the guy that was in jail, but I was doing things around coming in and out of my cell. It just was ridiculously funny. But so we got picked up, and all of a sudden I'm like, this is it. I am done, man. I'm going to be rich, and I'm having a great time, and blah blah blah. So we had picked up for 12 episodes. With I think it was episode 4, they had switched the writers. And the show went completely downhill from there and got canceled at 6 episodes. And there went my for sure dream. And so one of the things about acting that people need to know is that you may have a passion for it, but it is a complete feast and famine business.
Yes.
You may be working, I've made hundreds of thousands of dollars producing a movie, but then maybe I don't have another movie for 3-4 years or 2 years or whatever, so it's a very hard business to really crack into. I akin it to like panning for gold in the old Wild West.
So for those that were listening to episode 3, my buddy Mike Ganito came on, and he was part of what's the acting school city.
Second City, or
Second City. He was he was a Second City guy, and one of the things he talked a lot about was like it taught him how to embrace failure. It taught him the idea of like doing your best and knowing sometimes your best isn't going to work or be the right fit in the acting space. I'm guessing it was very similar to you on that side as well, right? Because like that's such a not only your way in, right? Like you had your own unique look and your own unique style, but that's also like that means you're pigeonholed. If that gets taken up, it's not like there's every movie has 50 mafia looking 6-footers in the movie as well. I'm sure that was a big piece of it.
Oh yeah, I mean I think that the training came. So I was a football player all my life. I had these coaches that were just strong figures that really shaped me in that way. And then going into Wall Street and becoming a broker, I was making 200 cold calls a day when I started out. And I was just, how many 99% of those, 99.9% of those were like, F you, or, so you get over rejection really quickly. You realize it's not a personal thing. It's just a numbers game. And so going into acting, I mean, I would go and audition for anything. I did not care. In fact, a funny story that people like to hear is that one time I saw in the trades, and this is back in the dark ages, right? No internet, we had fax machines. That's kind of it, and a pager. So, so I saw in the Hollywood Reporter that Danny DeVito's company had acquired the rights to make an Elmore Leonard novel called Get Shorty. And I knew the book, and I was like, this is a great story. Oh my God, there's a million parts I could play in this. I want to be in this. And so I devised a plan, because you had to be super creative in those days, of I wanted to get onto the Fox lot and just give my headshot into the casting office there. And so I went to in Southern California, there's a place called the Eagle Rock Italian Bakery, and so I went and bought a big box of cannolis. I put my headshot taped to the other inside of them, and I went to the Fox slot, walked up to the gate, and I said, "I have a delivery for Mr. DeVito's office." I can't remember the production company's name. And they, back then it was no big deal, so they let me in. So I go in there, and I walk up to his office. I said, "I have a delivery for Mr. DeVito," and I'm starting to sweat. Oh my god! And so they take it from me, and I go, "Thank you," and I start going out the door, and I'm like, I'm ready to just book down the street. I want to get out of there. And the receptionist came out, and she goes, "Wait a minute, Dave, wait a minute." I'm like, oh my gosh, she knows my name. I'm in trouble. And so she goes, "Come back in. Danny wants to talk to you." I'm like, oh shoot. So I go into the office, and he's chomping on one of the cannolis. He's like, "These are delicious. Where'd you get them?" I told him, and he goes, "Yeah, you have a really good look." I go, "Yeah, I know this book. I know the character, blah, blah, blah." And he goes, "Oh yeah, we're going to put you in the movie, man. Don't worry about it." So I got to be in that movie by being a little ballsy. And, now all of a sudden I'm on the set, and here's John Travolta and Danny DeVito, and I'm hanging out listening to stories and just having a ball, man.
So, I love that, right? Not only like that, because that's technically what we're doing today, I guess, Mark, that's guerrilla marketing at its like finest, the early days of like, get your stuff in front of the right people and whatever you can. I did like that you caveated, like, you could get on the set, because back then it was like pre 9/11 and pre like, any of us worrying about where anyone went, which is, I think 10 years from now we're gonna say like pre-COVID, right? Like where things are.
Well, nowadays it's like Fort Knox. You can't go on there unless you have a pass. They check your car out. But I was going to also tell you that. So that was all happening and doing well. But like I said, it was feast and famine. And so a buddy of mine who was still in the financial business says, "Hey, there's a great opening for this company that's institutional trading." And so that's dealing with the big mutual funds and brokers and moving hundreds of thousands of shares and whatnot. And I thought, God, what a great opportunity to, I was like, I don't know, late 20s. I wanted to make money.
Yeah.
And so I got into their apprentice program and passed everything. And then my goal, so once I finished the training in LA, I was going to go work in their main office in New York, which was on the very top of the trade center. And but during that whole thing, the traders were they were just these bullies, the senior traders, and it was like this whole like hierarchy there, and they would talk down with you and make you feel like crap, and it was like massive hazing, like in the worst fraternity in the world. And they were just loaded with money, and and I got to a point where, like one of the guys that worked there had come from nothing, worked his way up, and really wanted this suit, and he bought this suit. Finally, he saved his money. So proud of this suit. And one day they took his jacket, and he couldn't find it, and he thought, ah ha ha. And then 3 days later, the jacket's back, and it was like 2 inches shorter everywhere. And they thought it was the funniest thing in the world, and he was just heartbroken. And then it got to a point where I had gotten this really nice briefcase, and they had taken my briefcase, and I'm like, okay, what's the deal here? Where's my briefcase? And finally, I stood up. I said, "I want my briefcase back by 3 o'clock. I'm going to kick some effing butt in here." And I was like bigger than them all. And so, long story short, I got it back. And at that point at home that night, I go, I don't want to do this crappy work. This is like just eating your guts inside. These guys are all drinking my Lanta, and it's like, I don't want any of this. So I kind of quit after about a month, and I was like, I had enough of this. I'm going to go back and find something else that I'm passionate about, that I really want to do. It's not going to be just about money anymore.
Right.
And so I went into there, but that whole sad story is that whole company, with the exception of the CEO, died at 9/11. It was Cantor Fitzgerald. And the CEO happened to take his kid to school that day and was late, but everyone else was on top floor and got so I might have been there, but so that was just a weird thing. Like, Dave, follow your passion.
Yeah, no kidding. That's a sign there. And so you did bounce. Kind of, you went in, got a taste of the Hollywood life, went back out, and then decided to kind of the passion side. I love that. And I'm curious too, when like I know from just the some of the conversations we've had, like understanding like the production side of the house, like that world. Like when you were on the set during those like early days where you're standing around a lot, was a lot of it like mystery or like Marvel, or were they like? Did it feel like everyone else was still kind of figuring it out, where you could kind of pick up the trade as you went? Because I mean, I have no idea what that was like back then, but I feel like like now it seems such like a barrier to entry being like drastic, right? Like years of production school and such. But like, there's probably also like there's an element there where things are a little bit different in those days. How did you kind of get that first exposure into production and some of those other things?
Yeah, so I mean, literally, when you're an extra, you have hours and hours of, so you can go and take a nap, or you can read a book, or you can mingle with people that are working and just kind of watch what they're doing. And I was always very inquisitive, and I would see, this is what the grips and electric did, and this is how they did lighting correctly, and this is the audio guys, how they put all their stuff together, and what kind of gear they were using. And I was always fascinated with the camera, but I knew that was such a specialized thing that I mean, you really need to go learn those big cameras back in the day.
Yeah.
But then I saw what the producer did. And a lot of times he'd be sitting in a chair, smoking a cigar and telling everybody what the hell to do. And so I started to be friends with these guys and listening to what they were doing. And I saw that a lot of their job was putting money together to make the project. To work with distribution, to all that stuff. And that really interested me. And I thought, God, I want to be that guy. I don't want to be the guy that, saying 5 lines and is gone for the day. I want to be the guy that does all that. And so I really started to learn all of that on my own. And one day, I had an opportunity. There's a thing called the American Film Market out here in LA. My cousin Tina. Hello, Tina. The film market in LA is basically all the companies in the world come to here to buy movies for their countries, U.S. movies, wherever they are. So I would go there and walk around and learn things. And this particular time, I met Danny Aiello, who's an Academy Award-winning actor. His son was wanting to be a director, and so I just kind of met him at a bar right there and started talking with him and told him I was a producer, which I had no idea that I was, but I just made it up. And he goes, well, I got this great script and blah, 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 blah. And I was like looking at it. And I thought, wow, this is cool, man. And I read it and right there after we were drinking. And I said, you know what? I can put this together for you. What kind of budget do we need? And he goes, I'm looking for, like $1.8 million or something like that. My dad will be in it. It basically had attached to it 99% of the Sopranos cast before the Sopranos. So, like Big Pussy guy was in it, Pastore. I mean, a lot of guys were in it. So, so I went walking around. I had a pass, so I went walking around the film market and just started BSing my way, and got to a company that said, "Wow, this is great!" And literally within 45 days, I had put together about $1.9 million. To make this movie, and all of a sudden I'm a producer in Hollywood. And so that just kind of started my whole production world. I learned on the job, surrounded myself with smart people, and then went from there to my last job was producing stuff for Lifetime Television, executive producing for them. But I worked with Mel Gibson's company producing a movie. I mean, I've done tons of stuff producing, and I love that aspect of it. But literally, once again, if you are not, working for 20th Century Fox or Warner Brothers, where you're a studio producer, it's absolutely a feast and famine role again. So, a little more feasting, but still, a lot of famine. So that just kind of like drove me nuts.
I love that. So like, Mike, my good friend, was on in the third episode, who has the acting background. Of course, Jennifer, my partner, Weather Channel TV. She would probably even be most impressed with the Lifetime side of the house, because that's where she, like I always say, she watches the Weather Channel and Lifetime. So she has that market covered with like all the other 60-year-olds and Jennifer in that piece. And then of course with your background, and I love, like part of it, like not only luck, but like following your passion, making your own luck in many cases, and also kind of like learning on the job, learning on the fly. And I know, that kind of leads a lot into, I'd say, closer to present day with where you kind of went to where we're at Audiographer now. And I know, like, you had your son, which also kind of drastically changed a couple of things in your life. And talk about a little bit like those times, like from like, hey, this is my Hollywood, like this is the Hollywood world and production. I mean, to me, like the craziest thing is like one episode on SportsCenter, like just anchor of the desk or like an extra on one show would be like top of the line for me. Like that's like, I screw the stages that I'm speaking on and the people, like to me, I've always had like that side. But you had that. And then I did see a couple of good questions coming in from the live audience that I'm going to break into as well, because the idea of having all that background and then having, these random yahoos that come from random backgrounds that tell people to press the damn button and don't have any production background. And I'm sure that had a lot of impact. But talk us a little bit through that shift where, hey, I'm still following my passion, but I'm following in a different direction. And I'd say the origin of Audiographer.
Well, it's interesting because my wife, Lauren, was a big production designer. So she did like shows like Dexter and Weeds and Mad About You. I'm not Mad About You. I'm trying to think of the other one. Lots of big shows from Showtime. But she's working 15, 16-hour days. It's exhausting. I'm doing the same, but it's feast and famine. And so we both came to a point where we're kind of sick of this. We want to do some more, something more that we can really grasp and put our hands around and drive. And so we've had some money saved up, and my entertainment attorney said, you should go make a movie, Dave. Go direct a movie. And this is when Panasonic had just released. Now, no, I came from the film world with tons of $500,000 cameras, and developing your film and whatever. And all of a sudden, Panasonic released this camera called the DVX 100, and it was a camera about this big. Let me see, where's my camera here? And it had it shot in 24 frames per second, which was the key there. And the fact that it would do that, it would look filmic, and you can do all kinds of fun stuff with it. I'm like, oh my God, this is fantastic. So I bought this camera for $2,000, and I got in touch with USC Film School, and I said, do you have any up and coming cinematographers and any audio people? And so I started recruiting these wonderful kids. Now they're ancient like me. And I said, I'm making this movie, and I found this girl who wrote a script that was like, one of the things that I had learned through watching all the production was how to keep the costs down. And I thought, okay, I have access to my parents' big house, which looks like it could be in the mountains somewhere. I have access to my old high school, really, if I wanted to, blah, blah, blah. So I found this script that was like a 10 Little Indian story. It was called, it's called Desk Click, but I forgot the name of it originally. But it's these 8 friends, and they're going up to grandma's house in the mountains to have a party weekend, and someone's killing them off one by one. And so I love the story, blah, blah, blah. So we shot it for about $12,000 in 8 days. With just casting local talent and getting some great production people to work with us. We ended up selling this movie for 6 figures to Blockbuster.
Wow.
So they were buying up movies at that time. They needed as many. I mean, Blockbusters were booming. We need more product in there. And so we did that. And then that just got, what that taught me was, because I edited the whole thing. I learned how to do nonlinear editing with Adobe Premiere Pro early on. And, I was amazed that you could do this on a computer now, where you used to have
you had seen the production standing around that whole time, right? Like, wow.
And so I was able to do all this on my own computer, finish it and everything, and then deliver it. I would have this final product where I had to take it to a place where they transcoded it into these giant Betamax tapes so they could turn them in for deliverables, which you don't even do anymore. And so that whole time got me so excited about technology, and I just started to just love it and seeing how things had changed, and I just became this incredible technophile guy. And so then that took me into getting a job offer as a teacher. One of my best friends growing up was head of the career technical education for my rival high school, actually.
Oh wow.
And she says, "Do you want to come and teach media to these kids?" And I was like, "Yeah, you know." And so here I am teaching media, and the best job I ever had in my life. I loved it. I was teaching them how to
Wow.
be storytellers. Who's going to be the next Spielberg?
Oh
Who's going to
yeah.
be the next documentarian? Let's go film football games. And that was it. I fell in love. That was my dream job that I ever had. I was like, wow, you know. And then you kind of go, why didn't I do this 20 years ago? But then would had it all worked if I had done it 20
Right.
years
Yeah. No
ago?
kidding. Yeah. You need the background. Yeah. That is an interesting piece of that.
So then,
So.
so while I was there, of course, like, you know, my son was born,
Yep.
and I started to see that people needed, or my kids needed to have a better way to film with, because we were an affluent high school, but we really only had 5 or 6 cameras in the room, and I had 130 kids all day.
Wow.
And so if I wanted Brian to go out and make his great movie with 3 of his friends, well, that would tie up a camera for 3 or 4 days, and other kids would have nothing to do. So I said, let's start using these iPad things, because they had just come out, and I was like, these things are pretty damn cool, man. And so I got a little budget to get like 10 of them, and we started to film with them, and I was getting way more work done. And the drawback was that, you know, I was getting shaky video, horrible audio, you know, just all these problems. And so that's when I started to tinker around for the iOgrapher.
Ah, I don't think I'd heard that part. I knew this. I knew the teacher part, which I think it's funny because you know, oftentimes when someone's introducing me, they're like, you know, no, Brian has like the most unique background of random thing. Dave, I think you got me beat. Like, and which is kind of like a cool segue of like, you know, you have the Wall Street to the extra to the, you know, back to Wall Street to the, you know, production to hosting to, and all of that too is, and we both have this similarity, which is not a good one to have. You know, chasing your passion oftentimes leads you to a place of making a lot less money, even if you love what you're doing. There's like a path to, you know, like path to become a teacher is not the path to the riches of Wall Street. Very similar to me being, you know, leaving my government gig that I had for a long while, and you know, each step. But I love that, like that piece of progression. But also, you seem to be like, you would see that wave of where things are all going, but also where your passion kind of threaded there, right? And I think this is also interesting too, because with the iPad, with the iPhone, like I think those early days, no one was really thinking about that from like a you know, let's say a movie production. Like, I mean, you were definitely bleeding edge for that, even that concept, right? I mean, I think it took to the iPhone 7 before
10.
they like, yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
the 8
yeah.
or the 10.
Yeah, I think like the 8. I think it was the 8. I think
really
the 8 when they first said like shot on iPhone, and like because you didn't even want to tell people that your iPhone was taking pictures for Instagram, right? Like, so I mean that's like way early on, and so but with all, so you have the experience raising capital, you know, the Wall Street experience of, you know, knocking down, you know, people's doors, you know, the idea of, you know, how you got on the acting stages of, you know, making anything work just to get your thing in front of people. You know, then you become the teacher, right? Where, I mean, I think a lot of that's like people are fed to you, and I think teachers are, you know, one of the most unsung professions there is in the world. The mother of my kids is a teacher, and an amazing teacher at that. I was the worst student ever, so I always feel like I respect teachers more because I feel so bad for what they had to put up with whenever I was in school. And so you have all those experiences. You have the kids that are media, you have your own kids, but like you don't have startup experience technically, right? You don't have like, you don't have any product experience and any startup experience, right? Okay. Because I wanted to clarify that, because for those that are listening, when you're thinking about all these different paths, I think a lot of times we assume, even when you have different bouts of your background, all of them were like very layered in that got you to the one. And I'm like, wait a second, like my theme has been like stripping the mechanics out of a lot of things, right? Like there's a lot of themes that probably made it to making it to what you've done, but the idea of like what the actual physical product. So take us through that. Like so you're teaching, you're realizing that people are creating, but they have that shaky video. They also looks really unprofessional. I remember the very first time IBM brought me on stage was right when Meerkat came out. And so this is
rest in
January
peace.
2014, right? January 2014. And they bring me on stage, and I remember that they're like, yeah, this is a kid live streaming. He's got 2,800 people watching him. And like, I walk up there, and like the pictures of me look as like, I'm talking like like that, did you just get that off the street and like you think what he's doing is of any quality, right? Because he didn't have any layer of like I already dressed the way I dressed, but like on top of that was just like me holding a phone, right? And I remember like my first impression of the autographer was getting at me and like, yes, steady, yes, but I was like, oh my God, I immediately, because some of my contracts were the Super Bowl and I had some big ones but I needed to level up that for them to even respect the medium. So how did that come? So you discovered Kickstarter, I think from a student, right? From a student in your
Yeah. So one of my kids said you should get this on. So I designed this thing. I sketched it on an iPad. I from there I sent it to an engineer friend who designed it for me what I wanted. And then we took that and put it into a 3D printer, and all of a sudden this thing worked. I popped in my iPad mini. I could screw it onto a tripod. I was so impressed with 3D printing, to be quite honest. I was like, wow, this is amazing. And that was it. I was kind of done. I mean, I had no aspirations. Oh, I'm going to start a startup and everything. You know, I was just having a good time. I was a teacher. I loved what I did. And one of the students said, you should try out Kickstarter with this thing. I'm like, what the heck is that? So I looked into that and I was like, oh, what the heck? Let's see what happens, you know? And all of a sudden I'm getting, you know, the Wall Street Journal, Forbes, I mean, all these places calling me. And, you know, one of the big places that called me later after all this was over was what do you call it? Shark Tank.
Oh, yeah.
And so the Shark Tank. So anyway, let me get to that eventually. But so I did the whole thing. We presented this and got the Kickstarter made. And I literally was like, what the heck am I going to do now? I don't know how to mass produce anything. I don't know how to package all this. What am I going to do to get this to market? I mean, I have all these people that bought it. What am I doing? So luckily in the classroom, I had a kid whose parent owned an injection molding company because these things had to be injection molded. I didn't know anything about injection molding. Now I know everything I could possibly want to know. I had another kid whose parents owned a packaging company that dealt with like Lancome and all these places. And so all of this just started coming together, and I was feeling a lot better at that time. And then one of my best students had for many years, his dad and I, who were really, really good friends, had come and saw what I was doing. I think he's a Disney attorney, big wig. And so he would let me bring my top students my seniors to Disney every year to go to the animation room, to go into the studios and learn about it and whatnot. This particular year, we were walking around. The kids had two iographers, 3D prints of them, and they were filming and walking around. And so he really got curious about what all this was. And he's a smart guy, did a lot of homework, and took me for a long walk later in that week and said, I've drafted a $500,000 check and I want to be your partner. So let's do this for real. And so that just all kind of fell in my lap, and, you know.
No, you're making your own luck, right? That's just another example of making your own luck.
So, yeah, and that started the whole thing. And I really tried to do both jobs as long as I could. I loved teaching. I did not want to give up teaching because the kids were teaching me about Snapchat. I mean, I remember the first time I saw that, I was like, this is stupid. What it goes away? Like, what do you want this for? And then we started using it early on in Iographer as a way of communicating with customers who had a question on a Friday night at the football game. How do I do this? And I could just jump on, do a quick video, and it got to them. And you know, all of that started working. They taught me about Instagram. They taught me, you know, and so that got me into learning. I better learn about social media because this thing's, you know, no one's going to buy magazine ads. No one's going to buy newspaper classifieds. I mean, this is real time and awesome. So I love that they would keep me on that edge and learn more and more about all that.
So this is where this. So I owe your students then for this, because this is the segue to where is probably one of my favorite stories there is to tell, is like our first connection, the first time you engaged with me directly, especially from an Iographer piece, was via Snapchat, right? And you sent me a Snapchat, and you were in Hawaii at the time. Is that correct? If I remember this, you were in Hawaii. And I remember I was all in at Snapchat at that point, live video and Snapchat, and like I was getting bombarded with like influencer opportunities. At one point, I had like boxes of gear that was just getting stacked outside my house because of the live streaming was taking off, and none of us really knew what we were doing. But it was, and I remember getting the snap from you, and part of it was like you were sitting like under like a palm tree, and you were sitting with your wife, and you're like, "Hey, like I have some gear or something I think you would really love." But
Yeah.
I'm over here in Hawaii. Hopefully you can wait till I get back and I'll get you something. And I
Yeah.
will tell you, for all of the outreaches I've ever had from any brand, that one stood out to me in a way that, like, to this day, it's still the best that I've ever had. And I became a fan before I ever got your product, right? And like, to me, that is such the beauty of this. And we became friends afterwards. We've been able to travel to a lot of the same events. I've the number of products that as you've increased products, I've increased products that I'm using, because a lot of them I have here. But I think like how interesting is that too, from a standpoint of your students teaching you that? Because like you said, when you remove that part of your second job, yes, it's hey, you're freeing up more time for photographer, but you're also losing that extension of like learning, bleeding edge, kids trying something and telling things that don't work or do work. Also at that point, technology was, yes, it changes fast. We can say all the time, but I also feel like we were sticking with our devices a little longer back then. Now, and you adapted to this with the product, but like, I mean, back then, you got one phone, you kept it, at least 2 years. Now I'm the opposite guy, where like every iPhone comes out, I'm on it. Like I remember that outreach, and I have to like. When you were doing that, were you doing outreach to, like, was that something strategic a lot from that? Because you were saying customer service, but like from an outreach to like get people a product, like what was the mentality there early on with iOgrapher, kind of penetrating that, especially the live video space during that like late 2013, early 2014 years?
Yeah, no, I thought I would look for people that were just passionate about everything like I felt. I saw you as one of those people. You jumped on Meerkat super early. I remember when that came out at South by Southwest, and it was like, wow, this is just cutting edge that we could do all these things. And I remember using it. I think it was that same Hawaii trip, and it was either that or Periscope. But I remember just turning it on for a second, walking around the USS Missouri battleship, and hi, I'm here in the front of the Missouri. This is where the famous surrender of the Japanese was, and blah blah blah. And it started having like 10, 50, 60, 150, 410. I'm like, holy crap. And they were like, hey, Dave, this is awesome. Can you go back to that one area? I want to see it again. Like, let's walk over here, And I was like, this is insane, man. This is where this is going to happen. People can watch this, and then they could watch it later if they wanted to. They didn't have to watch it live. They could just join us later. But I was just, oh my God, it was so thrilling to see that. So I was looking for people that were interested in that world, that were seeing this as a medium to connect, to really, I can be here where I am. I can send it to you in Timbuktu, and you can really connect with what I'm doing because you're doing great things there. And my whole philosophy behind iOgrapher is that I really want to help out the great storytellers in the world, whether they're 5 years old or 105 years old. What are your stories that you're going to tell in your part of the world? Because now we can communicate like never before, right? And I just love hearing new stories from people all over the place.
Well, I think there's something beautiful there too, like in the enablement element, right? Like, because not only are you helping from the storytelling quality, right? Less, shaking. You're able to add external microphones, external light. But like, I remember, and like, it's funny that South by Southwest is when like I happened to find out Meerkat 2 weeks before South by, so I had the head start on everyone else, which was the reason that my Meerkat took off. And I was at 12,000 people watching me ride in an Uber on the way to South by because I had tried it once when I was in Barcelona a couple of weeks earlier. And then like exactly a year later, Dell had brought me back to the event. And the funny thing about it was, at the time, Periscope, of course, had come out, rumors of Facebook Live, and I was running 5 devices at the time, right? And I was like, I had gone that, and there was a shot that like Dell, when they had reached out to me, they were like, we want you, and this was what one of our executives saw, and it was literally an iOgrapher case on top of a tripod with like 2 dual mounts with 2 iPhones on top of the iOgrapher case, right? And I still have that photo somewhere. I'll have to push it out there.
Awesome.
And it was one of those things too, where it enabled quality, but it added some validity to what I was doing. And I think that's a beautiful thing in storytelling, because I think a lot of times once you like someone validates like, hey, like I need to give this person a chance. Now, if you're passionate, you have the stories to tell, you can do it. And I think that's the beauty of, everyone having a device doesn't mean everyone's a storyteller or good at creating video. Like, I mean, look at the average Facebook Live still to this day, right? Like, there's still a lot of bad content. But there's some comments here about, I'm curious from your stand, like, we're going to talk a little bit more about iOgrapher as well, because I want to hear a little bit about like the evolution. But like as that whole process is going on, and even like when you did the outreach to me, and I remember you sent gear, and you're like, and a lot of times when I get sent gear, especially from a startup, it's like a barrage of like, what can you do for me? And I can tell you, this was 2014 when our relationship first started. 6 years. Dave has never asked once for anything. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing as a founder, but I can tell you.
I learned from cold calling a million people that either they're going to like what I have to say or they're not. And so I want to give you what I think we're going to help you or make you do better things with your product, your video or whatnot. And then I'm going to leave you alone, and if they don't speak for themselves, then why? I'm not going to sit and sell it to you. They have to speak for themselves.
Which I think is such a lesson too in this day and age right now, right? Where, because there is a tendency to, like, there's extremes on both sides. Like people would send gear to my house when my address had got leaked out for a little while there. They didn't even put their name of the company in the package. Like even if I liked their product, I couldn't even promote. I was Googling I remember this one light kit that I had gotten. I was like, I couldn't even find them on social, right? And like, so there's people that just kind of like blast it out there and be like, oh, working with influencers doesn't work. There's the other extreme where they send you something and they barrage you over time, right? That there's this like a beautiful synergy in like product, relationship, conversation, making things work at certain times, things don't work at other times. And like I'll fast forward to 2020 real quick, and just a product perspective. I'm flushed into this virtual world that we all were thanks to COVID, and we all had to like kind of pivot in that sense. But I was doing a keynote the first week of April this year, and my power went out. It was not raining. My power went out. It was sunny outside. It was like 5:45 in the evening. And I had a product from iOgrapher, which is a ring light that puts on your table, but it plugs in USB. And I had a power supply, and I plug into the power supply, hit the button. That was a $10,000 gig that 10 minutes in, the power went out. I ended up getting on and finishing the entire gig via my iPhone and the iOgrapher ring light on my desktop, plugged in. I still have the picture where it's like this cast shadow, but it became a thing, like rolling with the punches. But for me, there was like something like, it was so funny. Like as I'm doing it, I'm like, damn, thanks Dave for that Snapchat message, right? Like, so like from a customer, from an influencer, from a friend, like there's also like this beautiful piece of like, when it's two way, right? When both people are getting something out of it, and when things are evolving and kind of rolling with what's going on. And so you had the Kickstarter, you had some of the Shark Tank. You've also had like multiple different products in multiple different arenas, winning awards. Competitors putting out some stuff that are similar. But you've also done a really good job of like partnership with some products as well, right? From microphones to from audio. Talk a little bit about what has it been like having a product that I wouldn't say is attached to live streaming or video. It's more of attached to the mobile concept, right? So it's more mobile than the live piece. But like this, since I started 2014 with live, it has gone through every iteration imaginable. How has that been from your side with like products? I've always loved having like the fisheye lens on the back end, right? Because it's another way for me to stand out when I told stories. But then I remember like the iPhone changed the back and completely screwed with the fisheye lens, right? So then how has that been from your side? Like what does that world look like for you? And like, do you still, I know you're passionate for what you do, but has there been moments of like, how the hell do I continue to keep up with this ever changing mobile world? Like what does that mean?
Yeah, that's been a big challenge because our first cases, everything fit the actual device. So if you had the iPhone 6 Plus, the case was for the iPhone 6 Plus. And so the problem with that model is that the molds, cost $65,000 to make a mold.
Yep.
And
This
you
is
know,
this
yeah,
is the next version. This isn't the
that's
original.
the game changer. Yeah.
I have the original. Actually, I have the original in my bedroom right now. Actually, funny enough, because my daughter's like, what are all these stickers on the back? But yeah, so yeah, that was the so you know do a mold. So the mold was of course the front end cost, but like I mean,
Packaging for that particular product, you know,
and
all
most of
of
that
that.
you were getting the. I mean, I'm an iPhone person, so we're going to be biased to iPhone for the moment. Like, you get the specs and everything after it's released, right? Like, you're not like Apple is such like it's Fort Knox to get anything, right?
Since day one, we have been friends with Apple Engineering and Apple Education. They've been huge supporters of us since day one. My good friend Tim David's an Apple engineer, and you know, I've given them tons of products. They've been great, showing them to the world for us. Have they once told me what the new specs were? No. So I'm on macrumors.com. I'm
Oh
searching
yeah,
all the websites, you know, to try and find out. In fact, we have there's a new phone coming soon. And so, you know, what's that going to be like?
yep,
But I usually have heart attacks. You know, well, here's an example. They just released the new iPad. I think it's the new, I don't know, what's the Air or something, but
Air,
anyway,
yeah, the Air,
it's
yeah,
10.9 inches. Okay. So they went from 10.2, they didn't go to 11, they went 10.9. So our latest iPad cases are 10.2. They fit our 10.5, they fit that range of things, 10.2, 10.5, the eighth generation that just came out. They fit all those. But now we don't have anything for the 10.9, you know. So
uh,
luckily, we had been in development before COVID happened of a multi-case that would open up and expand in different ways. Still had our patented handles, still had shoes on top. You could put it on tripods, but now, you know, oh, I have the 12.9 iPad. Oh, I have the Microsoft Surface. I'm in the
yep,
NFL. Oh, I have, you know, the tablet Chrome tab. You know, now it's opening us up to all of that, and we saw that coming through the success of the multi-case that you just showed for the
yep,
phone. So now, I mean,
yeah,
that fits anything from the iPhone 6 all the way up to any latest iPhone, plus most Androids too. The exception, I think there's one Android it doesn't fit. It's like the Note, you know,
yep,
10 Plus, it's gigantic. But yeah, there you go. So you just slip it right in there. You're ready to go.
yep,
We distribute case lenses, so you can screw on all kinds of different lenses if you want. You know,
yeah.
lots of options. And that's the original iPad. Yeah, that's our iPad mini case.
Yep, yeah. So I got my iPad Mini in there, and it's actually loaded up because my daughters have really enjoyed. They had the GoPro for such a long while, and then having the iPad has changed even the way that my daughter even like before my daughter was talking to it like it was a YouTube video, and now she's actually like creating some video. So that's
Oh,
why
that's cool.
it's in the case on the tripod right now because I will be picking it up tonight, and I guarantee it'll be played with tonight on that
Oh, that's
side.
awesome.
Yeah.
See,
So
that's
like,
what I made it for. I want people to just create and be creative and tell
what
stories and, you know.
and I think that's like Dave. Part of that too is like I mean you have a big heart and you are a guy, anyone who you're a big guy, but you have a big anyone who's met you at an event or anyone who's I mean it's amazing from like a reputation perspective. And I don't think I've even told you this. Like every person that I've ever known that's ever met you or sees an iOgrapher product or sees about my hat, they immediately gush about you and how great of a person you are and how connecting you are and you're doing introductions, you're passing people on. And so like yes, there's a passion, yeah, but I tell you what, your personality and like what it like I mean the advocacy you create around things has so much to do with who you are and like just your ability to really relate. Like Jennifer, my partner, I was eventually at one point she was like, I just really love Dave. Like, and she's like, I messaged Dave and got this. And I was like, hold on, Dave was my friend first. Like, wait a second, like, how
You're
does this
always
work?
first, Brian. Don't worry what they
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
You're always first.
But I think like and also like adapting to social media, working with social media influencers, figuring out when something does work, when it doesn't work. So like like in your product. So if anyone in the book bag that I also wear, it's also an iOgrapher book bag. David sent some iOgrapher book bags my way. And at the time, I had this big, bulky Oakley book bag, which I still have somewhere. And I switched over to the book bag. And then you have green, which is I have back here. And I made it known for the last 7 months that I hate green screens, like despise green screens. And it partially was because the 3 that I had been sent to me over the years were such a pain to get straight, get lit, and figure out, right? And so when I saw that you had that, you sent this over. And I can tell you, I've done 4 videos this week. All 4 of them leverage this damn green screen behind me. So like, so there's a part, so like your enablement, a lot of that. So I'm curious from like, you've had to adapt with COVID, the growing the business, lots of different products. Give us a little bit of like what is the pain point now for you as far as adoption? Because there was a question earlier. I think Michael Tomer had asked about like, what are your thoughts about like everyone's a filmmaker and a production person now in this new world. And I kind of know you to know enough like how you love empowering everyone to feel that, and it's not really a competition. But I also have listened to, like, I've watched the videos you create for the school and the content you create. And for those that haven't consumed there, and one of my good friends, actually one of the best video people that I've ever worked with my entire life, Mike Chesworth, he jumped in here and made a comment. And Mike is a videographer. He works with PETA, lots of different brands out of Phoenix. But when you work with like a videographer, someone that knows the craft, their ability to kind of empower the novice while also being able to relate with the expert is that massive skill. And I know that's what you have, but I can almost guarantee like from a product basis, that has to be hard, right? Like, cause like you, like, I mean, like me, like the things I'm going to request from my videographer are a lot different than the person that finally got their, first case to hold the phone. How do you balance kind of that whole world? Because I know you are so dialed in and you are so knowledgeable, that has to be a little bit of a difficulty.
Yeah, no, it's funny because my business partner has kept me very grounded because I'll get really techie about everything. But he's like, Dave, I don't understand a word you're saying. You got to bring it down, way down to me. And so I'm able, one of the things that, in fact, I just had this gushing message from this person this morning. When they come on the chat line to ask about a product, or I have this new iPhone 10 and I want to buy some of your products, but what should I do? And so I'll spend 5 minutes and I'll use the app Loom, L-O-O-M.
Oh yeah.
And I'll make a video and I'll say, hi, this is the case you could do and this is what it does for you. And this is the lenses that you might want to attach. And if you're going to shoot outdoors, you might want to put on an ND filter and this will work with that. If you're trying to get good audio, here's how you plug this in. And I'll send this to them. And she was like, oh my God, this is the greatest video I've ever got from a company. And she ordered like immediately. And so I think things like that, just take people, if you can just give a little bit like that, I think you're going to get a lot back. But talking about the different customers that we have, it's funny because I'm working on some chatbot stuff right now to help me out because I'm a small company.
Yeah.
There's 2 of us really. And we sell worldwide, and, I want to, use ManyChat. I've tried to go down the rabbit hole of ManyChat and learn it myself. And we just can't learn everything, even though we want to.
We try.
So I was on with someone that I'm going to work with, and they were asking me about, what is my ideal customer avatar? And that's kind of where it ends. There is not. If you have a phone or an iPad or a Chromebook and you can make video, that's kind of who it is. You're the mom and pop filming Joey's soccer game. You're the coach coaching football, want to make your players better. You're the small business that needs to make little videos for Facebook to tell about your business. You're the big company like Tupperware that we're working with right now that wants to get all of their workers out there with great video gear to do better live videos. So that is the pain point that I have, but I love it because it keeps me on my toes. And I look at stuff and go, wow, we need a new green screen because I'm seeing all these people at home with these really crappy walls or old furniture. I feel bad, and they're trying to do these professional videos and they're sitting on the edge of their bed and there's some, towels that are unfolded behind them. And I'm like, just, get a little green screen, especially with Zoom and things like that. You kind of don't even need lights sometimes. If you just have lights in the house, it does a good enough job now, which is unheard of. So anyway, I try and find things to help people's lives be easier. And I test them like gangbusters on myself.
Yep.
And then I go, okay, yeah, this is something. We just released, I don't know if I sent it to you yet, but it's a boom pole for distance interviews and whatnot. And,
I saw your Instagram post on it. So I don't have it, but
yeah,
I saw your post on it.
that came about really from a conversation I had with Michigan State University. Their journalism and their film school use our products, and they buy a bunch every year. And they came about, hey, do you have anything for this type of an interview with social distancing? I'm like, no, I don't, but you know what? I sure as hell should. So I started to test out a bunch of different things, and we put together an interview kit that's 6 feet away, plugs into your device, a no-brainer, and you're good to go. And so, I try to adapt to wherever we are all the time. Otherwise, you're going to be a dinosaur, and that's it.
I'm curious, just from what is your from the green screen or even from ideation to finding the manufacturer, I guessing you've had that process pretty dialed in now, because I feel like you come to market fairly quick. Is that, I mean, you're leveraging that ability, because I think you've learned that, because I'm always impressed that you have something. I'm like, how do you, for those that are, I have one actually sitting here in the box still. So I'll actually give one of these away, because I have one sitting here.
All right.
So this is the, my lights. There you go. It's the ring light. So if any of your kids are on TikTok, and every kid wants to have a light on their TikTok, a ring light, everyone's buying these ginormous ring lights that they have to leave in their living room, which then I see on every Instagram story. These poor parents have to deal with these obnoxious ring lights, which I have 3 of them in my house, which are obnoxious. I love that yours is tabletop, plugs in a USB to wall, or USB I had to a power supply. But what's your secret? What's the enablement that allows you to go to market as fast as you do? Because I'm always impressed, because I assume small budget, small team, very innovative guy, it's still going to be hard to make it happen, and you do it really well.
A lot of times it'll be me, honestly, doodling something that I think would be really cool, and then I show it to these manufacturers that I've gotten to know, and I'll say, "Can you make this? What kind of price point can we get? How many? If we buy 1,000 or 10,000, does it make economical sense so that I can still sell it inexpensively enough to my customers and still make a little buck here or there?" And that's kind of, and it's just been really fortunate that I've got hooked up with some really good manufacturers that I trust, that I've spent, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars with. And, we haven't had any hiccups yet, knock on wood. So it's just, finding the right partners to do business with, ordering small to begin with, doing sample orders, things like that. Exploring overseas. There's lots of places overseas, to get stuff that are still really high quality. And it's funny, because a lot of people think, oh, if it's overseas, it's not good. Well, the reason that a lot of things overseas are less expensive is because the materials and, in that country are inexpensive. That's the price of the materials. It's not that they're crap, but, steel in one country is not the same as steel here in the US,
For sure.
And so that's kind of the way we go and do stuff. When we can buy here locally, we make all of the iographers cases and stuff here in California. That was a big thing for me. I wanted to be able to go down to the manufacturing plant, make sure that everything was going well, when we were first starting out. Could I make those overseas a lot cheaper? Yes, but I don't want to. I make enough money. I love that I'm employing people, and I love that it's local, and still made in the USA does have things, a little thing to it still, thank God, so, but yeah, it's really trial and error and learning. It's funny, because people are like, you should do a class on all this. I'm like, yeah, but I don't know. I enjoy just telling people about it.
Well, with that in mind, you also, you've written a book, have a school part for getting people to learn on that side. You have, like I said, new products that are popping up all the time. I mean, and for those that, are following me, you have some of the stuff on Amazon, on my Amazon store. Almost all the other stuff that I use is up on my website, on the gear page, but we'll put out some links in the bios. Make sure you guys are able to get a hold of all of that stuff. Dave, I'm curious, as someone, so for me, getting into a product side has always been the goal. That for me has been something where, and I always said, I didn't know what the product ever was. Everyone was like, oh, you want to be an entrepreneur? And I was like, no, I don't really want to be an entrepreneur. I'm a guy that I'm a very passionate brand. Like I wear my passion and my brands on my sleeve. Like literally,
Mhm.
I mean, I got Steelers tattoo on my leg. Like I've always been that way. But there's also like this like there's a lot of unknown. Also, where like there's a trend where everyone can be a drop shipper these days. There's also a trend where everyone can have a t-shirt business. I'm curious, not for advice for me. I know I can tap into you that one-on-one, but I'm curious, like, what do you see as like the future, not only of iographer, but of like, of this space and this, your ability? Because I mean, yes, some of it's making luck. Yeah, some of it's, I mean, you got Kickstarter early on in Kickstarter, which was so beautiful to be in there when it's in. Like, I still probably back 8 to 10 Kickstarters a year still to this day, because like actually a couple of the products over my shoulder, the Throwboy pillow, Steve Jobs, that's right there. There's only 100 of those ever made via Kickstarter,
Awesome.
and I was one of the ones that had the 100. So where do you see this? Like where? Let's put in like where do you see not only iographer but like this kind of space and this ability to kind of get your product in front of the right people and kind of adapt as you're going?
Well, personally, I think it's funny because I was talking with some fitness friends of mine. One of my best friends, they're fitness instructors. They own this huge gym in Pasadena that they had to let go because it can't open anymore. They got this massive, monthly space. They got to pay rent, and it's just not. You can't do anything. So that COVID really ruined all of that. So they've turned to. I helped them a lot. They turned to online. They're live streaming Zoom classes. They have their own library of classes now, and they're starting to really make money because people loved what they did before. So then I told them, you need to sell stretch bands and foam rollers and all that stuff that's branded. So when people take your course, they want to pick these things up from you as well because you're there. You see the face of these people. They trust you.
Yep.
So let's add the little things that go with all of this. Maybe there's some yoga mat spray that cleans it. I mean, anything like that. All that stuff is realistic, and
Right.
you can make a good chunk of money on that. And if Brian tells me, oh, Dave, I got this amazing foam roller. It's gotten rid of all my pains on my ankles or whatever. I'm like, oh, really? What's the link? That's all I need, right?
Yep.
Boom. I'm gonna buy that because Brian told me.
Sure.
So I think everyone, whatever you're doing, you really need to think about, a product thing with it. Trying to remember our good friend from social media marketing world. I can't think of his name right now, but he makes
Oh no, that's
these.
Joel Com. Yeah.
Joel Com, yes.
Yep.
So this is, it costs him a couple of bucks, and he makes a few bucks on this, but people make these. I mean, you should have Press the Damn Button.
I do. I have a Press the Damn Button one.
Okay, so I got to buy one of those.
Yeah. So here.
There you go.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. It says "damn" on it, right? So like
I
that's
love
a
it.
Joel
I
Com.
love it.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to buy one of those, and everyone should buy that because it's very important. But even if you're doing things like this, think outside the box of what you can provide that's going to give someone, I want to say quality. I mean, of course, quality, but some, kind of empowering them back with something.
Right.
One of the things that we do, like my mobile video school, if you take my courses, I'm going to give you a huge discount to iographer because I'm teaching you this stuff. Well, go buy the gear too, so you can, get this. If you buy a big bundle from iographer, I'm going to give you a free class because I want you to be successful with it. So I think there's just so much, and online courses right now are booming because we're all needing to learn new things.
Yep.
We're now, and this is what better opportunity now. We're home. We can jump on once a week and learn how to be an Instagram superstar to promote our business that is kind of at a standstill right now, right? The local, my good friend who's down the street here, they own a little cafe, and it's just the best food. I love it. And so I told her, you need to tell people, use some social media and do something special for the community. And so what she did was she started to do a Taco Tuesday early on, so that people can come there and pick up a whole thing and take it home and have a meal. And everything was clean and safe. And so we started putting it up on the neighborhood app for the local people, and all of a sudden it turned into like a huge booming business for her. I was posting photos. I was like trying to do everything I could because I don't want her to go out of business. I eat breakfast there probably 3 times a week.
Heck
you
yeah.
have to stay in business. So it's just thinking about things like that. I think that really helps it.
I love it. I love it. Dave, this was a lot of fun. I'm so glad that you came on. I got to learn a little bit. I got and a lot of that connection. I think there's so much to be learned in making your own luck, figuring out the path as you go. There's so many people that are like, riches and ninjas. We're telling our kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? And then we both are examples of like, yeah, that path has changed in more ways than we even know, with left turns and failures as well as successes and learning as we go. But I also think this is like, kind of the neat thing, right? Like the being able to put ourselves out there and tell our story. I mean, to me, so much of that, like, thanks to one Snapchat video during a time where I'm inundated with asks, created a connection that 6 years later, and we're able to get in here and hang out and still share and advocate for each other. That's what this is all about. Like, this is like the whole premise of Press the Damn Button is like when you put your story out there and yourself out there and you're a good person doing good stuff, it's going to work out and you're going to be able to figure out how to find your people. And I also love your kind of, the product is the no niche product for like some guy that loves no niches, right? Like if you have a phone, you can use this product. And not to mention a lot of the other stuff that you have up there. So Dave, thanks so much for having us on. Any parting words, anything that you want to leave the audience with?
Just please go out and vote, everybody. That's it.
Boom. That's the way we do it. That's what it is. Hey, you don't get to complain if you're not voting. And actually, I'm tired of people complaining. Just go vote and take that. Great way to wrap it up. Like I said, check out iOgrapher. You'll some links in the comments, of course, on my website.
Brian, why don't we give away a live video kit? So you get to pick who wins.
Perfect.
It's going to be the flexible tripod, the little ring light, and our lavalier mic. For whoever you want, buddy.
There we go. So I'm going to do that. So we're going to, if you're listening to this and you tweet it out, so on Twitter, so you have to be a Twitter user. We'll do Twitter this time. They did Instagram last time. And just tag, either put hashtag Press the Damn Button or tag iSocialFans or iOgrapher with this episode. And we are, it'll go live on, I believe on the 13th. So we're going to say we'll pick a winner on the 20th, and I'll reply back to a tweet. So we'll give everybody a week after the episode is live next week. But thanks, Dave. I appreciate that. That's very nice of you. And I tell you what, guys, this is what it's all about, right? Finding products and people that are doing great stuff and putting stuff out there. And like Dave said, I love the way he ended that. Let's vote. Get out there and vote. And until next time, my friends, make it a great day. Remember, tell your story, put yourself out there. There's tons of great people doing great things, and unfortunately, we're stuck with bad news and fake news. Put your story out there, and the world will be a better place. Till next time.
Love you, Mr. Fanzo. And everyone, check out my cousin, Busy D Jewelry on Etsy. She makes amazing. I just saw her comment.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Love it. Love it. Thanks, Dave.
Brian.